What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and today we're back doing those 40 facts you all know and love. Today we are continuing into the psychic disciplines of Warhammer 40K. We've talked about biomancy, we've talked about, I believe it was telepathy, and we've talked about the Zeech discipline. Today we are talking about the psychic powers for the Necrons and Khorne. So this video is over, because there is no psychic powers for them. Just kidding, guys. I would never do that to you, or I kind of just did, but it doesn't matter because we are continuing with two psychic disciplines that I know and love. The first one being geomancy. Geomancy is a pretty interesting psychic discipline because it is about controlling the earth. Essentially, you're an earthbender. Hashtag avatar. So in the 40,000th millennia, where there are flame weapons, you've got weapons of mass destruction that can literally blow up planets, why not throw a rock at your opponent? That's pretty much what geomancy, or better known as Geokinesis, can do. So the Geokinesis discipline is when you use the ground beneath you as your weapon. The discipline of earth and stone, Geokinesis is the art of reaching down under the skin of a world and turning its natural might into a weapon. The battlefield literally yawns open to swallow up those that oppose the Space Marines, or it is corrupted enough to cause massive earthquakes. Even whole segments of the battleground might be levitated high into the sky by the Librarian, as the enemies fall screaming to their deaths. However, even worse, some are crushed as the Psyker relinquishes his control, causing hundreds of tons of rock to plummet from the sky. Now this was a huge inspiration where I drew like the lore and the makeup behind my Cretan, Marabi, the Form Seeker, because she literally rips the planet apart and uses like the crust, whatever materials she's near, as a cloak to basically guard herself from her weak necrodermis. So with geomancy, that's pretty much what she's doing. So now let's jump into the psychic powers of Geokinesis, beginning with the Primaris power, Chasm. So Chasm is when the Psyker slams his hands together and then slowly pulls them apart. As he's doing this, a wide chasm filled with lava tears open under the enemy and burns them until nothing is left. Now, Geokinesis isn't all about hurling rocks at your opponent. Sometimes you can draw the very life essence of a planet, sending forth a surge of healing energy that spreads from the ground and into the Librarian, healing him or his allies. But we all know we all like getting down and dirty, so let's talk about Scorched Earth. Scorched Earth is when the Psyker focuses his mental powers on an area of ground. Then, the surface begins to writhe and burn, spewing rocks and lava into the air and turning this area into a quagmire of quicksand made of lava. Now that's freaking crazy. Imagine suffocating to death. Well, you probably won't suffocate because you'll burn before then, but that's a very nasty and devastating ability nonetheless. Now, no geokinetic discipline can be complete without talking about the ultimate move, Landquake. Now, Landquake is exactly what it sounds like. It's an earthquake. They just got synonyms, land, earth, you know. But anyway, this is when the Psyker literally stomps the yard, and it triggers a violent shock that sends ripples of cracking debris, the earth literally shattering open, knocking the enemy off of their feet. Now, an earthquake is pretty devastating. Just ask Pokemon because it is a powerful move in that game. But one thing that I have to say is 100% better than a landquake, or an earthquake for that matter, is a boobquake. Now let's quickly move past this because I do not want Slanesh to hear me. So, moving on, we've got another quake, and that is a warpquake. Now, Warpquake is when the Psyker focuses on a building or a piece of land and then begins to ball his fists. The tighter his fist becomes, the more that this building starts to crumble and collapse in on itself as if reality and gravity were being controlled by the Psyker. So much so until the building begins to literally collapse into a tight ball that has a bunch of dead enemies within it. Now this is a very powerful attack. Think of it as like that one move from Naruto where Pain's like, I forgot what it's called, but think of it that way. Whatever this picture that I'm showing you is showing you, that's what I'm thinking of. But anyway, that is where I will conclude the abilities that speak about Geokinesis, because we are now moving on to a different discipline, the Librarius discipline. So we started off this lore talking about the earth and earthbending pretty much. Now let's go into the library and read up on the Librarius discipline. So this is pretty much ancient lore from a chapter's librarium that is kept hidden among its ancient scrolls. Now here is where the Space Marines have closely guarded their texts, and inside these texts are unique techniques that allow librarians to enhance their own psychic might, or quell that of their enemies. In battle, those trained in the arts of librarianism can batter enemies with ethereal force, strengthen their own minds and bodies with the power of the warp, or even cut off the warp from their enemy librarians. So this is a very powerful discipline, way stronger than chucking rocks at your opponent. But we must always remember, never belittle the boob Quake. Starting off with the Primaris power for the Librarius discipline is none other than the Emperor's Wrath. This is pretty much the standard power. Think of it as a beefed up version of Smite, because this is when crackling bolts of psychic energy leap from the Librarian's gauntlet, tearing through armor and annihilating the enemies of the Imperium. This is basically your bread and butter. Think of it, like I said, think of it as Smite. Think of it as like shooting lightning out. Whenever you think of a psychic power, that's pretty much what comes to mind. But it only gets better from here, because we have the Veil of Time. The psykers will basically passages through time, taking in the strands of fate before returning to the present in order to sway the tide of battle. What this jumbulation of words really means is that you're saying, F you Zeech, I now control fate, come at me. But yeah, pretty much just, you get to reroll failed throws, so, woohoo. Next up, we've got the Psychic Fortress. This is when boundless reserves of inner strength literally pours out of the psyker, creating an impenetrable psychic shield. This can literally stop even the hardiest of enemy assaults, but it does come at a devastating toll on the psyker. He is usually pretty drained after this, barrier, but again, if it means protecting the Battle Brothers and pushing on the will of the Emperor, it is a two-edged sword that cannot be stopped. The next psychic ability is none other than the Psychic Scourge. This is a one-on-one, mano-a-mano battle between two psykers. Usually one psyker will say, hey, my psychic abilities are better than yours, and they're like, oh yeah, whip it out. And they both whip it out, and whoever has the biggest wins. But in the warp. So basically, it's a battle of mental fortitude. You're trying to say, yeah, I've got more tomes on my back, I've got more scrolls than you do, and then the enemy's like, oh yeah? Well, look at all my scrolls, look at all my tomes. And at the end of the day, there can only be one. And we have come to the final power that I will be talking about in today's Psychic Discipline video, and that is none other than everybody's favorite, the Twilight Zone. Oh wait, never mind, we're talking about the Null Zone. Boo. So the Null Zone is when the psyker unleashes his full might upon his target's defenses, leaving him unable to defend himself because he has been unleashing his psychic defenses to tear down the technological and mystical shielding that the enemy psyker has put up, leaving him vulnerable to retribution from the other Battle Brothers. So if Thousand Suns Sorcerer says, come through this psychic defense, usually this Librarius, disciplined psyker librarian will be like, oh yeah? No more, and then death to bolter rounds. Something like that. And that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what was your favorite psychic ability out of these psychic disciplines that I covered today. The Librarius discipline and the Geokinesis discipline. So, will rocks beat books? It's up to you guys to decide. Again, leave your comments down below as to what other psychic disciplines you want me to cover, because there is quite a few. I will be making a playlist. I said I was going to do that last time, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So there's going to be a playlist with all psychic abilities and whatnot for every race, every discipline, so stay tuned for that. And of course, guys, this is the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I will be catching you guys tomorrow.